Hey guys, tonight we're going to talk about a man so mind-bogglingly wealthy that his acts of charity literally broke the economies of foreign nations for years at a time. We are journeying back to the 14th century to the vast sun-drenched plains of West Africa, where you can practically feel the heat shimmering off the earth. Imagine an empire built on rivers of gold where the king is about to embark on the most extravagant road trip in human history. The only reality check you need tonight is that in this world there are no weather forecasts for the Sahara and no GPS. Your emperor can, and in this story, absolutely will just sail off the edge of the known world and disappear forever, handing you the keys to the entire kingdom. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let us know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. It's always fascinating to see where these stories end up. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your story doesn't begin with you as the emperor. Not yet. For now you are simply Kanku Musa. A name that is respectable, certainly, but not yet legendary. To understand how you ascend to a level of wealth that would make modern billionaires look like they're managing a moderately successful lemonade stand, you first have to understand the man you served. You have to understand the king who looked at an entire ocean and saw not a boundary, but an invitation. The year is sometime in the early 1300s, let's say 1310. The air in the capital city of Nyani is thick and alive. It's a tapestry of smells roasting goat-fragrant spices from across the desert, the dusty scent of sun-baked earth and the ever-present life-giving aroma of the Niger River flowing nearby. You are in the heart of the Mali Empire, a kingdom that is already a powerhouse. You are a courtier, a man of influence, the deputy to the emperor himself. Life is good. The granaries are full, the markets are bustling, and the salt caravans from the north arrive with comforting regularity. Salt in this part of the world is almost as precious as the other thing your empire has in abundance: gold. The ruler of this vast domain is a man named Mansa Abu Bakr II. He is your boss, your king, and he is a dreamer. Not in a vague, idle way, but in a focused, almost obsessive manner. While other kings might concern themselves with conquering a neighboring territory or building a taller palace, Abu Bakr is captivated by a single immense question. What lies at the end of the Atlantic Ocean? To him, it is the encircling sea, a great mysterious body of water that borders his western shores. The court scholars, wise men who have studied ancient texts from Baghdad and Alexandria, tell him that it is impossible to cross. They speak of monstrous sea creatures of a region of thick darkness and of currents that will pull ships to their doom. Everyone agrees the ocean is an end, not a path. Everyone except the Mansa. You watch him during court sessions. His eyes seem to look past the petitioners and the provincial governors gazing westward, as if he can see the waves crashing on the distant coast. He spends hours with his shipbuilders, not discussing river barges for trade along the Niger, but strange new designs for seafaring vessels. He interviews sailors and fishermen from the coastal tribes, asking them about the winds, the tides, the stars. There's a gentle buzz of mockery among some of the older, more traditional members of the court. They see his ambition as folly, a waste of resources, a dangerous flirtation with the forbidden. You, however, see the burning curiosity in his eyes. It's not madness. It's an intellectual fire. One day, Abu Bakr calls his court together. He announces his plan. He will fund and launch a fleet to explore the Atlantic. A hush falls over the throne room. This is no longer just a hobby. This is a royal decree. He commissions 200 ships. 200. The number is staggering. Each ship is to be filled with sailors, but also with artisans, scholars, and enough food, water, and dried goods to last for years. And crucially, each ship will have a companion vessel filled exclusively with extra supplies, a floating warehouse tethered to each exploration craft. It's an incredibly clever bit of logistics, a medieval version of a support vehicle. The fleet is assembled. The sailors are a mix of brave volunteers and conscripted criminals, a classic maritime recruitment strategy. Abu Bakr oversees the final preparations himself, walking the bustling docks. His red and gold robes a stark contrast to the sweat-stained tunics of the workers. He gives the fleet's admiral one simple command: do not return until you have found the other side of the ocean, or you have run out of food and water. And so they sail, out from the rivers of Mali into the vast, unforgiving green of the Atlantic. The capital waits. Weeks turn into months. The seasons change. The court's business continues, but there's a nervous energy, a constant listening for news from the West. You, as his deputy, take on more and more responsibility governing in his name, ensuring the empire runs smoothly in his absence. A long time passes. Long enough for most to have given up hope. Then one day, a single ship limps back to the coast. Just one out of 200. Its sail is tattered, its wood bleached by sun and salt. The crew is skeletal, but they have a survivor, the captain of his vessel. He is brought before you and the royal council. His voice is a dry rasp as he tells his story. He speaks of sailing for months of calm seas and storms. Then he says they came to a place in the middle of the ocean where the water seemed to flow like a great river, a powerful current that seized the other ships one by one and pulled them away onwards towards the horizon. He watched as his companion vessels were swept into the distance, disappearing from sight. Fearing this terrifying watery conveyor belt, he had turned his own ship around, and by some miracle, fought his way back home. The court is silent. The scholars nod grimly. This confirms their theories, a river in the sea, a current of no return. This is where the story should end. A tragic lesson learned. A king's folly punished by the unforgiving forces of nature. But Abu Bakr Thuk is not a man who learns that kind of lesson. To him, the survivor's story is not a warning. It is a clue. A river in the ocean. That means there is a direction. It means there is a destination. It means the others went somewhere. His obsession, once a crackling fire, now becomes a roaring inferno. He announces a second expedition. And this time, it will be an order of magnitude larger. And this time, he will lead it himself. This is the moment that historians still argue about. Was Abu Bakr a visionary explorer on the cusp of a great discovery, or a reckless king abandoning his duty and his people some fringe romantic theories looking at ancient maps and faint clues? Whisper that perhaps he wasn't lost at all. They speculate that this Malian fleet, guided by the powerful Canary Current, might just have made it. They wonder if faint traces of African culture, certain plants or artistic motifs found in pre-Columbian America could be a sign. It's a tantalizing thought, isn't it? A fleet of West African ships laden with scholars and gold making landfall in Brazil or the Caribbean a century and a half before Columbus. Most mainstream historians, of course, dismiss this. The evidence is whisper thin, and the more likely tragic reality is that the fleet was simply swallowed by the vastness of the sea, its crews succumbing to storms, starvation, or disease. An ambitious dream that met a watery grave. But in that moment in Nyani, the debate is for the future. The reality is this: your king is leaving. He orders the construction of 2,000 ships, 1,000 for the explorers, and another 1,000 for their supplies. The scale is almost impossible to comprehend. The resources required are immense. The forests echo with the sound of axes. The docks are a chaos of construction. He is stripping the empire of its finest craftsmen, its bravest sailors, its wisest men. He is taking it all with him. And this is where the system is so unique, so quintessentially Malian. This isn't a shocking abdication. It's part of the plan. Before he leaves, Abu Bakr too formally and publicly summons you Kanku Musa. In a grand ceremony, he places the authority of the empire in your hands. You are appointed regent, the acting Mansa. The rule is clear and has been part of your tradition. You will govern until he returns. If he does not return after a reasonable time has passed, the regency ends, and you become the Mansa in your own right. It is a peaceful, orderly transfer of power designed for exactly this kind of high-risk, high-reward venture. It's the 14th century equivalent of giving your deputy the login passwords and the keys to the company car, just in case your experimental rocket flight doesn't quite go to plan. You stand on the shore and watch the fleet depart. It is a forest of masts disappearing over the horizon, a sight of breathtaking ambition. You are now the steward of the Mali Empire. You rule, you wait. You send out the tax collectors, you arbitrate disputes between governors. You ensure the trade routes remain secure. You do the job, and you wait. Another year passes, then another. The faint hope that flickered in the hearts of the court slowly extinguishes like a candle in a long hallway. There is no news. There are no returning ships. There is only silence from the west. Eventually, the Council of Elders comes to you. The period of waiting is over. Abu Bakr II is declared lost to the world, a ghost king swallowed by his dream. And you, Kanku Musa, are no longer the deputy. You are now Mansa Musa, the 10th Mansa of the Mali Empire. The weight of it all, the gold, the salt, the people, the traditions, the vast, sprawling territory, settles onto your shoulders. Your predecessor gave up his empire to chase the horizon. You have just inherited it, and you have no idea that your legacy will not be one of discovering new worlds, but of showing the old world just how much gold your empire truly holds. You sit on the throne, the wood smoothed by the hands of 9 rulers before you. It feels no different than it did yesterday when you were merely keeping it warm. But today it is yours. The great heavy rings of office feel heavier on your fingers. The weight you feel isn't just the symbolic burden of leadership. It is the almost comically literal weight of gold. Your predecessor, Abu Bakr II, a man who saw his kingdom as a launching pad to chase mysteries, has vanished into the great blue yonder. He sought a new world across the water. You, a more practical man, turn your gaze inward towards the foundations of the world you now command. And those foundations are made of solid, glittering, unbelievably heavy gold. To truly grasp the journey you are about to undertake, you must first understand the engine that will power it. Your empire is not wealthy by accident. It is not merely successful. It is a finely tuned economic machine designed for one purpose: to accumulate and control the most desired substance on Earth. You are the CEO of a company whose only product is wealth itself. Your first duty as the new Mansa is to take a full accounting of your inheritance, not just the number of provinces or the loyalty of your governors, but the treasury. The great treasury of Nyani is less a room and more a complex of fortified clay buildings. Inside there is no paper money, no complex ledgers of digital assets. There is just the thing itself. Gold dust stored in gourds so large it takes 2 men to lift them. Gold jewelry of intricate design passed down through generations. And the nuggets. Ah, the nuggets. We'll get to those in a moment. The source of all this yellow metal lies to the south and west of your capital, in the lands of the Wangara, a secretive collective of peoples who live in the forest and savanna regions. This is where you hit the geological jackpot. Historians call these the 3 great West African goldfields, Bambouk, Bure, and Galam. You don't need to know these names. To you, they are simply the fountains. They are the source from which the river of gold flows north directly into your hands. The Mali Empire doesn't actively mine the gold itself in a state-run operation. That would be too complicated, too difficult to manage. Instead, your genius is in your position. You control all the territory around the goldfields. You are the ultimate middleman. The process is an ancient and elegant one. The Wangara miners extract the gold from alluvial deposits, panning it from rivers, or digging shallow pits. They are masters of their craft, knowing just where to look, following the seams of quartz that hint at a rich deposit. Once they have a sufficient amount, they bring it to the northern edge of their lands, to designated market towns that you control. And here, they meet the merchants. These are the traders from the Northmen who have crossed the vast expanse of the Sahara, and they have brought with them the one thing your southern lands desperately need: salt. You have to imagine a world where salt is not just a seasoning, it is a fundamental necessity of life. In the hot, humid climate of West Africa, people lose salt through sweat at an alarming rate. It's vital for preserving food for the health of livestock and for human survival itself. But there are no major salt deposits in your region. The salt all comes from the north, from great mines in the middle of the Sahara Desert, places like Tagaza and Taudeni. There, under a sun that would kill a lesser man, workers cut the salt out of the earth in huge, heavy slabs. These slabs, this white gold, are loaded onto camels and carried for hundreds of miles south across the burning sands to your markets. This is the great exchange, the economic heartbeat of West Africa. The northern merchants arrive with their slabs of salt, and the Wangara miners arrive with their pouches of gold dust. A silent, almost ritualistic trade takes place. Sometimes the merchants will simply leave their salt slabs in a pile and retreat, and the miners will come and place what they believe is a fair amount of gold next to it and retreat in turn. This goes on until both parties are satisfied and take their respective goods. It's the world's most high-stakes silent auction, and you, the Mansa of Mali, control every single access point to this trade. Every road, every river, every market town, every pinch of gold that travels north, and every slab of salt that travels south pays a tax to you. It is a toll road on the highway to wealth. Now about those nuggets. As you tour the treasury, you see them, gleaming, strangely organic shapes of pure, raw gold. Some are small, the size of a bean. Others are as large as a guinea fowl, or a fist, as the Arab chroniclers would later write with astonishment. And here is one of the most brilliant rules of your empire, a quirky little law that ensures the ultimate wealth stays right where it is in your hands. Common people are forbidden from owning or trading these gold nuggets. All the gold that circulates in the marketplaces, all the gold used to buy cattle or cloth or spices, must be in the form of Tybar gold dust. The nuggets are considered royal property. More than that, they are considered magical, powerful, a direct link to the spirit of the earth that produced them. To find a large nugget and keep it for yourself would be to invite terrible luck. So the miners dutifully turn over every nugget they find to your agents. This keeps the large concentrated forms of wealth out of circulation, preventing any one merchant or local chief from accumulating enough to challenge your authority. It's a masterful piece of economic policy dressed up as protective superstition. You essentially control the gold supply, in the same way a modern central bank controls the money supply. So the big question historians and economists still love to argue about is just how rich were you? What is all of this worth? You'll see figures thrown around on the internet, most commonly an inflation-adjusted estimate of $400 billion in today's money. And while that's a fun number to think about, it completely misses the point. The very concept of converting your wealth into modern dollars is a flawed game. You don't operate in a global market of competing currencies. In your corner of the world, you are the market. Historians debate the exact tonnage of gold that passed through your empire. Was it 8 tons a year or? No one knows for sure. The records are oral, passed down by griots, or they are the second-hand accounts of travelers. Trying to calculate your net worth is like trying to calculate the net worth of Santa Claus. The entire system is built around you. Your wealth wasn't in what it could buy, but in what it represented, a seemingly infinite resource. You owned by some estimates more than half of the entire world's known supply of gold at the time. When you possess that much of a single commodity, its value becomes whatever you say it is. Your spending and saving habits don't just affect the market, they create it. This is a level of financial control that no modern government or individual could ever hope to replicate. You stand there in the cool, dark treasury, the air still and heavy. You run a hand over a particularly large nugget, its surface smooth and pitted, its weight shocking. This is your inheritance. Not the dusty throne or the title, but this seemingly endless supply of solidified sunshine, this economic superpower. For Abu Bakr II, it was a means to an end, the fuel for his oceanic fantasy. For you, it is something different. It is a responsibility. It is a tool. And as you stand there, a new idea begins to form in your mind. An idea born of piety, of duty, and of a desire to show the world what the Mali Empire truly is. You will not chase the horizon. You will journey to the center of the known world. And you will do it in a style that no one will ever forget. You have the gold. You have the salt. You have the power. The vast machinery of the Mali Empire hums along efficient and predictable. The throne is secure, the governors are loyal, and the treasury is for all practical purposes infinite. But you find that sitting atop this mountain of earthly wealth provides a strange kind of clarity. It makes you acutely aware of the things that wealth cannot buy. It cannot erase the memory of your predecessor's fleet sailing into oblivion. It cannot grant you wisdom, and it cannot on its own satisfy the debts you owe to a power higher than any throne. Your court is a Muslim court. Islam traveled to your land centuries ago, riding south across the Sahara on the same camel caravans that carried the salt slabs. It was a religion of the book of learning of a vast and connected world that stretched from Spain to the fringes of China. For the Malian elite, embracing Islam was a way to join that world. Your ancestors were devout believers, and you are no different. You were raised on the teachings of the Quran, you consult with learned jurists from the Maliki school of law, and your days are structured by the 5 calls to prayer that echo across Nayani from the city's mosques. And in the heart of your faith there are 5 pillars, 5 fundamental duties required of every believer. There is the declaration of faith, the daily prayers, the giving of charity, and the fast of Ramadan. You have done all of these your entire life. But then, there is the 5th pillar, the Hajj, the pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca. It is a duty incumbent upon every adult Muslim man or woman at least once in their lifetime, provided they are physically able and have the financial means to make the journey. And you, Mansa Musa, most certainly have the financial means. It would be like the owner of the world's largest airline, claiming he couldn't afford a plane ticket. For you, the Hajj is not just a vague spiritual goal. It is a profound and unavoidable obligation. The sheer scale of your wealth makes the call to Mecca thunderously loud in your conscience. To ignore it would be a spiritual failure of epic proportions. The question for you was never if you would go. The only question was how. How does a man like you, the guardian of an entire empire's fortune, perform an act of humility? But there may be another darker and more personal reason compelling you forward. It's a story that the Arab historian Al-Umari would hear from your courtiers years later in Cairo, a story whispered in hushed tones. Whether it is a true confession or a piece of dramatic folklore, only you would know for sure. But the story goes like this. You accidentally caused the death of your own mother, the Queen Mother Kanku. Perhaps it was a hunting accident, a stray arrow from your bow. Perhaps it was some other terrible, tragic mishap. The details are lost to the mists of time, but the result, as the story tells it, was a stain on your soul that you could not wash away. Haunted by this, you gave immense charity. You fed the poor, you freed slaves, you funded the construction of mosques. You poured out gold in an attempt to atone, but your heart remained heavy. Your sleep was troubled. You consulted the most learned Islamic jurists in your kingdom, laying your burden before them. They listened patiently and gave you their solemn advice. Your charity was noble, but for an act of this gravity, something more was needed. The only path to true forgiveness, they said, was to make the great pilgrimage. You must travel to Mecca, stand before the Kaaba, and beg for God's mercy. You must go to Medina and seek the spiritual intercession of the Prophet himself at his tomb. According to this tale, your Hajj is not just an act of duty. It is a desperate mission for redemption, a journey of atonement. So you have your reasons. The undeniable pull of religious duty and perhaps the heavy push of personal guilt. But as you plan this monumental undertaking, you are too savvy, too intelligent not to see the other benefits. Historians looking back through the centuries still debate your primary motivation. Was this journey a pure expression of piety, or was it one of the most brilliant geopolitical moves in the history of Africa? The wonderful truth is that it was probably both. The most sincere act of faith can also be an incredible act of public relations. Think about your situation. You rule a massive, powerful, and wealthy empire. But to the old established centers of Islamic power in North Africa and the Middle East in Cairo, Damascus, Baghdad, your kingdom is a place of legend, not fact. It's a semi-mythical land called Tekrur, on their maps a vague region known for gold and not much else. They see you as being on the periphery of the world. A grand pilgrimage, one undertaken with an entourage and a level of wealth they have never seen before, would shatter that perception. It's a statement. It announces, we are not on the periphery. We are a center of power in our own right. We are here. You aren't just going to Mecca to pray. You are going to put Mali on the map, literally and figuratively. Then there is the issue of talent. You have wealth, but you want wisdom. You want to elevate your cities from prosperous trading posts to great centers of learning and culture. Where do you find the people to do that? You find them in the old established cities you will be visiting. This pilgrimage is the single greatest international networking event of the 14th century. You can meet, impress, and recruit the sharpest minds of the age theologians, architects, scientists, poets. You can go shopping for an entire generation of intellectuals to bring back home with you. It is a brain drain strategy of continental proportions. Finally, the journey is an act of internal consolidation. A successful Hajj confers a huge amount of prestige known as baraka, or blessings. By completing the journey, you are cementing your legacy, proving your piety and your power to your own people and to the surrounding kingdoms. You are demonstrating that you are not just a king who inherited a fortune, but a great Muslim ruler worthy of his title. It's the ultimate way to legitimize and celebrate your reign. So the streams of motivation all flow together into one great river, pulling you eastward. Your faith calls you. Your guilt may be pushing you. And your political genius sees the incredible opportunity it represents. You do not have to choose between being a pious man and a clever king. On this journey, you can be both at the same time. The decision solidifies in your mind. It is no longer an idea. It is a plan. You summon the elders of your court, the governors of your provinces, the keepers of your treasury. You announce your intention. You Mansa Musa will undertake the Hajj. A ripple of shock and excitement spreads through the chamber, and then out into the city, and then out into the empire. This will not be a simple caravan of a few merchants and their guards. This will be the Hajj of the Mansa of Mali. It will be a moving city of gold. The preparations must begin at once, and they will be on a scale that the world has never seen. Your decision, once made, ripples outwards from the throne room in Nyani, like a stone dropped in a calm pond. But this is no small ripple. It is a tidal wave of imperial command. Your decree goes out carried by swift horsemen to the farthest provinces of your empire. The Mansa is going to Mecca, and the empire is going with him. What follows is not simply the preparation for a journey. It is the mobilization of a nation. It is the logistical equivalent of planning a moon mission, but with camels instead of rockets. First come the people. You cannot cross thousands of miles of desert and hostile territory alone. This needs to be a show of force, a statement of power, and a self-sufficient moving city. The first to be summoned are your soldiers. Your personal guard, the elite of the Malian army, forms the core. 1,000 of your finest warriors clad in iron-scaled armor and vibrantly colored tunics, their tall spears tipped with gleaming metal. They are the vanguard, the ones who will ride ahead, scout the terrain, and ensure the safety of the route. Then comes the main body of the army, 10,000-foot soldiers, a mix of archers with powerful bows and spearmen with broad shields. Their job is to form a protective ring around the caravan, a walking wall of muscle and steel. This isn't just about bandits. It's about projecting an aura of untouchable authority. When you arrive at a foreign city, you will arrive as a great king, not as a vulnerable traveler. Next, you assemble your court. You are not shuttering the government while you're away. You are taking it with you. Your chief viziers, your ministers of finance, your provincial governors, they are all expected to come. It's the ultimate mandatory corporate retreat. Your griots, the living libraries of your empire, must also attend. They are the oral historians, the men who have memorized the lineage of your dynasty and the great deeds of your ancestors. Their job on this journey will be to witness, memorize, and compose the epic poem of this Hajj for future generations. They are your public relations department, ready to sing your praises at every stop. And then comes the vast, sprawling universe of support staff. For every noble and soldier, there are dozens of others whose work is essential but unsung. Cooks who can prepare meals for thousands. Water bearers who know how to find it, ration it, and carry it. Tent makers and pitchers who can erect a small city at dusk and dismantle it at dawn. Doctors and healers equipped with herbs and traditional remedies. Blacksmiths to shoe the horses. Leather workers to mend the saddles. And of course, the thousands upon thousands of camel drivers, the sinewy, sun-hardened men who understand the moods and needs of the desert's most crucial animal. But this is not just an expedition of men. Your senior wife, the Empress Inari Kunade, is to accompany you, and she, of course, has her own entourage. This is a wonderfully quirky detail that the chroniclers would later note with amazement. She doesn't just pack a bag and join you. She brings with her 500 personal attendants. 500. You have to picture this. A whole division of the caravan dedicated to the Empress and her staff. Her ladies-in-waiting, her hairdressers, her cooks, her guards, her servants. It's a procession within the procession, a testament to her own power and status within the empire. It quietly signals that this is not just a king's journey. It is the journey of an entire royal dynasty. The sheer numbers are where the story begins to tip into legend. The griots, their eyes wide with the memory of it, would later sing of 60,000 people. 60,000. An entire city's population on the move. This number includes the 12,000 personal servants and slaves of the Mansa himself, men and women whose sole purpose was to attend to the needs of you and your immediate court. Now, modern historians, being the party poopers they often are, get out their dusty abacuses and question these figures. They ask, how could you possibly find enough food and water to sustain 60,000 people crossing the Sahara? The logistics would be a nightmare. A single camel needs dozens of liters of water after a few days in the desert. Multiply that by the tens of thousands of camels needed to carry everything, and then add the water for the people, and the numbers become astronomical. So, historians debate. Was it truly 60,000, an almost unbelievable figure that would have stretched for miles and drained every oasis it passed? Or was it an exaggeration, the kind that happens when an awestruck observer tries to describe something so vast they can't possibly count it? Perhaps the true number was smaller, 20,000, maybe 30,000. But here's the thing. Even the most conservative estimate is still staggering. Even if it was only 15 or 20,000 people, it remains one of the largest single caravans to ever cross the Sahara. The debate itself just underscores the epic scale of your ambition. You are not thinking in terms of what is easy, or even what is practical. You are thinking in terms of what is glorious. Beyond the people, there are the animals. The backbone of the entire operation is the camel. They are the ships of the desert, the only creatures capable of enduring this journey. Orders are sent out to every corner of your empire to procure them. They are brought to Nyani by the thousands, their guttural complaining groans becoming a permanent feature of the city's soundscape. 80 some say 100 camels are set aside for a very special purpose we will discuss shortly. The rest are loaded with the necessities, immense sacks of grain, dried meat, dates, and nuts. Water skins, by the thousands made from goat and sheep hides, are filled and loaded, their damp, earthy smell mixing with the dust. There are also horses, hundreds of them for you, your generals and your elite cavalry. These are not desert animals. They are precious, a symbol of wealth and military power, and they require their own special supply of food and water, making them a logistical challenge in their own right. And trailing behind this organized chaos is a moving feast, herds of sheep, goats, and cattle, driven along to be slaughtered for fresh meat along the way. It is a completely self-contained, self-sufficient ecosystem on the march. In the weeks leading up to your departure, the plains outside Niani transform. A new temporary city, a city of tents and campfires, sprawls for miles. The air is a constant hum of activity, a cacophony of languages and dialects from across your diverse empire. It smells of cooking fires, livestock, and nervous energy. It is organized chaos on an imperial scale. You ride out from your palace to survey the scene. From a high vantage point, you look out over the sea of humanity you have summoned. It is a tide of people and animals, of color and sound, all waiting for your command. The logistical feat of simply gathering them all here is a triumph in itself. The people are ready. The animals are ready. The supplies are ready. Now, all that is left is to prepare the cargo. The real reason this journey will be remembered for 700 years. You must now give the order to pack the gold. You give the order. The great clay and wood doors of the imperial treasury, sealed with the insignia of your dynasty, are swung open. For years, this has been a place of quiet, a place of accumulation. Gold flowed in from the south, was taxed, tallied, and stored, adding slowly and surely to the immense reserves of the empire. But today, the flow is reversed. Today, you are making a withdrawal, and it will be the largest withdrawal in the history of the world. Out into the dazzling sunlight it comes, not in neat rectangular bars, and not in jingling coins. Your wealth is more fundamental, more elemental than that. It is brought out in huge leather-skinned gourds and tightly woven sacks. It is Tybar, gold dust, the fine, sandy, gleaming powder that is the lifeblood of your economy. The sheer volume is difficult to process. You've commanded that 18 tons of it be prepared for the journey. 18 tons. Try to picture it. It's the weight of 3 or 4 large bull elephants. It's the weight of a dozen family cars. But it's not iron or stone. It is pure, refined gold, and you are about to take it on a road trip. The logistics of this are a challenge that would make any quartermaster break out in a cold sweat. How do you pack and transport a mountain of heavy sand across a continent? This is where the camels you set aside come into play. According to the tales that will echo down the centuries, you select 80 of your strongest, most stoic camels for this task alone. These are not the grumpy, spitting beasts of burden carrying tents and grain. These are the armored trucks of your caravan. Each of these 80 camels is to be loaded with 300 pounds of gold dust. Imagine the process. Your treasurer's men you trust with your life oversee the weighing. They use large balance scales with heavy polished stones for counterweights. On one side goes a stack of empty reinforced leather bags. On the other, the attendants pour the gold dust. The sound is a soft, satisfying hiss, like sand through a giant hourglass. As the dust piles up, the scale arm slowly, heavily tips. Once a bag is filled and weighed, it is sealed. Its drawstring pulled tight and knotted by a master of the craft, then likely sealed again with a dab of hot wax bearing your insignia. Then 2 strong men lift each sack, grunting with the effort, and secure it to the specially designed saddle on one of the gold camels. Of course, historians with their endless need to question a good story look at these numbers and scratch their heads. 300 pounds, that's about 136 kilograms, is a tremendous amount of weight for a camel to bear day in and day out for thousands of miles, especially when it's so densely concentrated. They debate the details. Was it really 80 camels or more, with each carrying less? Was the gold distributed in smaller portions among more animals to spread the load? Did merchants traveling with you carry some of it as part of a complex business arrangement? The truth is likely a messy combination of all these things. But the legend, the image of 80 camels, each laden with a fortune, is what sticks. Because it captures the sheer, glorious absurdity of what you are doing. You are moving a literal river of gold, and you are doing it one hooffall at a time. But this is not nearly ostentatious enough for you. The gold on the camels is for spending for charity, for the real business of the Hajj. You need something more. You need a statement. You need pure, unadulterated spectacle. And this is where you devise a touch of pure genius, a piece of political theater so magnificent it borders on performance art. You decree that a special procession will march at the very front of your caravan directly ahead of you and your royal guards. This procession will consist of 500 young strong men chosen from among your personal servants and heralds, and each and every one of them will carry a staff made of solid gold. In the weeks before departure, your goldsmiths work day and night. They are not crafting intricate jewelry, but heavy, polished batons of pure, gleaming metal. Each staff is said to weigh about 4 pounds or nearly 2 kilograms. Imagine the scene. 500 men dressed in the finest white and crimson silks of your empire, marching in perfect formation across the desert. And as they walk, the African sun glints off of 500 solid gold staffs, creating a moving, shimmering forest of light. It is the most beautiful, most intimidating, and most fabulously expensive welcome parade imaginable. It says, "The man coming behind us is so wealthy he uses this much gold just to clear the way." The joke among the men carrying them, of course, is how tired their arms are going to be by the time they reach Cairo, but it is a small price to pay for being part of such a sight. Alongside this river of wealth, you also prepare for the day-to-day necessities. Gold dust is measured out into smaller pouches, distributed among your trusted treasurers. This is your walking around money, the funds you will use to purchase exotic fruits in a Saharan oasis, to pay for passage across a river, to tip a local guide. And most importantly, it is the gold you will give away as zakat and sadaqah, the obligatory and voluntary alms that are a cornerstone of your faith. You intend to be generous, and you are bringing enough gold to be generous on a scale the world has never conceived of. Naturally, all of this treasure requires security. The 80 gold camels are not left to wander in the main herd. They form their own special, heavily guarded unit at the center of the caravan. At night, they are brought into the very heart of the camp, and their precious cargo is unloaded and stored in your royal treasury tent. The tent itself is surrounded at all times by a detachment of your most loyal, most fearsome guards. This is a moving bank vault, and its security is absolute. Finally, the last bag is weighed. The last sack is loaded. The last golden staff is given a final polish. You stand before your assembled caravan. The people are a sea of nervous excitement. The animals groan under their loads. The supplies are accounted for. And now the treasure is packed. The sheer kinetic energy of it all is palpable. Tens of thousands of souls, thousands of animals, and tons of gold, all poised on the edge of the great unknown. Everything is ready. The sun is rising high in the sky, casting long shadows across the plains. The only thing left to do is to begin. The first step is taken. A single command from you and a sound like a low earthquake begins as the caravan lurches into motion. It is not a quick start. A city of 60,000 souls does not simply stand up and walk away. It is a slow, messy, groaning process. The lead scouts move out first, their horses kicking up a fine red dust. Then the magnificent sun-catching procession of your 500 heralds with their golden staffs. Then you mounted on a proud stallion surrounded by your elite guard. Behind you, the river of people, animals, and treasure begins its slow, inexorable flow, leaving the familiar comforts of Nayani behind. You do not look back. Your gaze is fixed on the horizon, on the east, on Mecca. For the first few weeks, the journey is relatively easy. You travel through the familiar landscape of your own empire, the great savanna known as the Sahel. It is a world of scattered acacia trees, tall grasses, and friendly villages. where the people come out to greet their mansa, their eyes wide with awe at the scale of your procession. The days fall into a steady, hypnotic rhythm. Rise before dawn, a quick meal. The organized chaos of breaking camp, and then the long, slow march through the heat of the day. The sound becomes a constant companion, the shuffling of thousands of feet, the rhythmic plodding of camel hooves, the creak of leather saddles, the distant calls of the drivers, and the low hum of 60,000 conversations. At dusk, the process reverses. The tents bloom like a field of canvas mushrooms. Thousands of campfires flicker to life, and the smell of cooking food fills the air. As you travel north, the landscape begins to change. The trees become scarcer, smaller, more gnarled. The grass grows in stubborn patches rather than lush fields. The earth becomes more sand and rock than soil. You are leaving the green lands behind and approaching the true desert, the great and terrible Sahara. Your first major destination, your first stop on this continental crossing, is a place you have heard of your entire life but have never seen. It is the source of the white gold, the other pillar of your empire's wealth. You are heading for the salt mines of Tagaza. After many days of travel across this increasingly barren landscape, your scouts report back. They have seen it, a strange shimmer on the horizon. The air in the caravan crackles with a new energy. This is not just another oasis. This is a place of legend. As you draw closer, you see it for yourself. Under the punishing white-hot sun, a city seems to rise from the desert floor. But it doesn't look right. It doesn't have the warm, earthen tones of the clay buildings you know. It is pale, grayish-white, and it glitters. It takes a moment for your mind to accept what your eyes are seeing. The city is made of salt. The buildings, the very houses the people live in, are constructed from massive, rough-hewn blocks of salt, dug straight from the earth. The walls are salt. The mosque, a squat, imposing building, is also made of salt blocks. Its roof the only major exception made from stretched and dried camel hides. It is a surreal, strangely beautiful, and deeply unsettling place. It feels like a city from a dream, a monument to a single, all-consuming resource. But the dreamlike beauty shatters as you enter the city itself. This is not a place of joy. This is a place of toil. Tagaza is essentially a massive open-air labor camp. The work of hacking the salt from the ground, a task of incredible physical difficulty under the relentless sun, is done by slaves. They are owned and managed by the local Masufa Tuareg, a tough nomadic people who control this desolate patch of the Sahara. You watch the slaves work their bodies gaunt and covered in a fine sheen of salt and sweat, and you notice the flies. A thick, buzzing cloud of them seems to hang over the entire settlement, drawn by the salt, the sweat, and the general misery. You are greeted by the Masufa chief, a man whose face is a mask of wrinkles from a life spent squinting into the sun. He is respectful, of course. He has to be. But this brings up a complex geopolitical reality that historians still debate. Is Tagaza part of the Mali Empire? Not really. You don't have a governor here. No Malian soldiers are garrisoned in this salt block fortress. It is too remote, too culturally distinct. So how do you control it? Your power here is not military. It's economic. You are the sole buyer for their only product. The entire output of the Tagaza mines is loaded onto caravans and sent south to your markets to be traded for the food that keeps this settlement alive. You control the demand. If you were to shift your trade routes to a different salt mine, Tagaza would cease to exist within a year. The chief's deference to you is not born of loyalty, but of stark economic necessity. It's a tense, symbiotic relationship, and your arrival with a city-sized caravan is a powerful reminder of who holds the real power. You make a camp for your people on the outskirts of the city. The contrast is jarring. Your brightly colored silk tents stand beside the grim gray salt block houses. The smell of your cooks preparing spiced lamb and chicken wafts over to a people whose diet is famously miserably monotonous. Nothing grows in Tagaza. Literally nothing. The only water comes from brackish wells that taste of salt and minerals. The inhabitants survive on a diet of dates millet and occasionally the stringy meat of an old camel, all of which has to be imported from hundreds of miles away. Your personal physicians take one look at the local water and insist that you and your court drink only from the supplies you brought with you. You stay for several days, allowing your people and animals to rest and acclimate to the harsher conditions ahead. You trade some of your gold for fresh supplies of salt, not for its value, but for its use. Salt is essential for the health of your livestock. The Masufa chief presents you with tribute several perfect, massive slabs of crystalline salt, and you, in turn, gift him with a pouch of gold dust, heavy enough to ensure his cooperation for years to come. It is the old dance of diplomacy and power played out in one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. Finally, the time comes to leave. The water skins are refilled with the brackish, unpleasant water. It is better than nothing. The caravan is reassembled. As you ride out, you take one last look back at the strange, shimmering city of salt. You have seen the grim source of your white gold. You have witnessed the human cost of the trade that enriches your empire. Now the easy part of your journey is over. Ahead of you lies the true test. The vast, empty heart of the Sahara. The land of thirst, as the drivers call it. And your next stop is an oasis on the other side. You leave Takaza behind, and with it the last vestige of a familiar world. The landscape that unfolds before you now is the Sahara of nightmares and legends. It is not just sand. It is an endless, undulating ocean of rock, gravel, and dunes that stretch to a horizon that seems to shimmer with impossible heat. There are no villages here, no friendly faces, no recognizable landmarks. There is only the sky above and the earth below, and the 60,000 souls of your caravan suspended between them. The mood of your moving city changes. The boisterous energy of the early days has evaporated, replaced by a quiet, watchful, and deeply focused determination. This is the great test. To survive, you must adapt. The rhythm of your life warps, turning night into day. To march under the midday sun would be madness, a mass suicide cooked in the open air. So you adopt the ancient schedule of the desert nomads. The day begins in the cool, profound blackness of 2 or 3 in the morning. A quick cold meal of dates and dried meat is eaten by the light of the stars and a few low campfires. The tents are struck, the camels loaded all in a practiced hushed efficiency. You begin to march as the first hint of gray appears on the eastern horizon. This becomes the most magical time of day. You watch as the rising sun paints the dunes in impossible colors, soft pinks, deep oranges, rich purples. Your 500 heralds march ahead, their golden staffs catching the first rays of light, casting long, dancing shadows. The air is cool and crisp. For a few hours, the desert feels beautiful, even gentle. Then, as the sun climbs higher, the heat begins its relentless assault. By mid-morning, it is already a physical presence, a heavy blanket that smothers the air and drains your energy, and that is when you halt. The entire caravan, a city stretching for miles, simply stops. The next 6 to 8 hours are spent in a state of suspended animation. Tents are pitched to create pockets of shade. People huddle against the shaded side of a rocky outcrop, or in the shadow of a patient camel. This is a time for sleep, for mending a sandal, or polishing a spearhead. It is a time for quiet conversation, for a game of senet played on a board scratched into the sand. You, the Mansa, retreat to your lavish silk pavilion, the air inside kept marginally cooler by servants who wave large ostrich feather fans. The world outside dissolves into a silent, shimmering haze of heat. Life is on pause. Then in the late afternoon, as the sun begins its descent, a gentle breeze stirs. The temperature drops from punishing to merely sweltering. The signal is given, and the city slowly comes back to life. You march again through the long, golden hours of the afternoon and into the twilight. You continue into the night, guided now by a canopy of stars so bright and clear they seem close enough to touch. The guides, the true kings of this domain, now do their most important work. Your guides are Tuareg men born to this emptiness. They are your living compasses. You watch them fascinated. They navigate not by maps, but by an encyclopedic knowledge passed down through generations. They read the positions of the stars, the North Star, the Southern Cross, constellations you've never seen before. They understand the subtle shifts in the wind, the texture of the sand under their feet, the shape of a particular rock formation that to your eyes looks identical to 1,000 others you have passed. Their skill is the only thing standing between your caravan and a thirsty death. A single mistake, a wrong turn that leads you to miss the next oasis by a mere 50 miles would be a fatal error. The quiet tension of this fact underlies every slow, plodding step the caravan takes. The greatest challenge, the problem that makes modern historians shake their heads in disbelief, is water. How do you keep a population the size of a large town, plus thousands of animals alive, for weeks at a time between known water sources? The rationing is severe. The water bearers are now the most powerful men in the caravan, dispensing the precious liquid with grim precision. Every drop is guarded. But even with the strictest rationing, the math doesn't seem to work. The water skins you carry, as numerous as they are, cannot possibly hold enough. This is where the scholars debate. Did your guides know of secret deep wells hidden from common knowledge and marked only by subtle signs? Did you send small, elite scouting parties riding your fastest camels days ahead of the main body carrying water, back to replenish your stores in a continuous life-saving loop? Or, as the more skeptical academics propose, were the numbers of your caravan simply smaller than the legends say? Perhaps the 60,000 figure was a poetic exaggeration for a still massive, but more manageable 20 or 25,000. Whatever the secret was, it worked. You are proving that with enough wealth knowledge and planning, even the Sahara can be tamed. It's the ultimate conquest, not through war, but through logistics. Days bleed into weeks. The hypnotic rhythm of the march-halt-march becomes your entire existence. The world shrinks to the creak of your saddle, the shuffling feet of the men in front of you, and the vast empty canvas of the desert. You see mirages, shimmering lakes of water on the horizon that dissolve into heat haze as you approach. You pass the sun-bleached bones of less fortunate caravans, a stark reminder of the stakes. Your griots sing quiet songs at night tales of the great spirits of the desert and the heroes who crossed it before. Then one evening a change. A scout rides back to you. His face cracked with sun and dust, but his eyes alive with excitement. He carries a small, withered branch with a few green leaves on it. A cheer starting as a low murmur ripples back through the exhausted caravan. The guides have been true. The air begins to feel different, a faint hint of moisture in it that you haven't felt for weeks. The next day, you see it yourself. A dark line on the far horizon. Not rocks this time. It is the green of palm trees. Your long, thirsty walk is nearing its end. You have crossed the burning sands, and on the other side of that green line lies the valley of the Nile and the ancient, magnificent city of Cairo. You emerge from the desert like a man coming out of a long, dark tunnel, and the light you step into is the brilliant, impossible green of the Nile River Valley. After weeks of seeing nothing but 1,000 shades of brown and beige, the lushness is a physical shock. Fields of wheat, groves of date palms, the silver ribbon of the great river itself. It feels like you have arrived in paradise. A wave of palpable relief washes over your caravan. The shuffling steps become more energetic. The tired, drawn faces of your people break into smiles. The water from the Nile is cool and sweet, a blessing after the brackish wells of the Sahara. You have made it. You have crossed the abyss. As your immense procession moves deeper into the fertile lands of Egypt, you become the spectacle. Local villagers tending their fields or guiding their water buffalo stop and stare their mouths agape. They have seen caravans before, but they have never seen anything like this. This is not a line of merchants. This is a nation on the move. They watch as the 500 heralds with their golden staffs march past, followed by you in your regal splendor, followed by a river of humanity that seems to have no end. News of your arrival travels faster than you do, carried by stunned messengers who ride ahead to the capital, their stories becoming more embellished with every mile. You are a wise and experienced ruler, and you understand protocol. You do not simply march up to the gates of Cairo, the largest and most powerful city in the Islamic world, and demand entry. That would be the act of a barbarian conqueror, not a pious pilgrim king. Instead, you guide your caravan to a place just outside the city, a place already legendary in its own right. You make your camp in the shadow of the Great Pyramids of Giza. The scene is one for the ages. Your city of 60,000 tents, a sprawling canvas metropolis, rises on the ancient plateau with the enigmatic face of the Sphinx as your silent neighbor. It is a meeting of two different kinds of wonder, the monumental stone legacy of the ancient pharaohs, and the vibrant, living, breathing testament to your own power. You will rest here for 3 days. It is a practical decision allowing your people and animals to recover fully from their ordeal. But it is also a brilliant diplomatic one. It gives the court of the Mamluk Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad time to process your arrival, to prepare for your reception, and to let their curiosity about you swell to a fever pitch. While you wait, your people, finally free from the strict rationing of the desert, descend upon the local markets of Giza and the outskirts of Cairo. They are thirsty, hungry for fresh food, and flush with gold. The result is immediate and chaotic. A Cairene merchant who the day before was selling chickens for a few silver dirhams suddenly finds himself being offered a pinch of pure gold dust for his entire stock. The price of eggs, bread, dates, fabrics, and everything else in the marketplace skyrockets overnight. It's a sudden, localized economic boom. Your courtiers and servants, unaccustomed to the local currency, are simply paying for everything in gold, their generosity and wealth completely upending the delicate balance of the local economy. It's a small taste, a tiny preview of the much larger economic disruption you are about to unleash on the city proper. Meanwhile, in the great citadel of Cairo, the seat of Mamluk power, your arrival has caused a sensation. The Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad is a powerful and experienced ruler. His empire is the cultural, military, and religious heart of the Islamic world. His spies are the best in the world. But you are something new. The reports from his officials are filled with disbelief. A king from the deep south, a land they call the Bilad al-Sudan, or Land of the Blacks, has appeared out of the desert with an army, an entire city of followers, and most incredibly, a seemingly limitless quantity of gold. Historians still debate what the Sultan must have thought. He was the most powerful man they knew, and suddenly a new player had walked onto the board. Was he impressed by your wealth? Undoubtedly. Was he suspicious of your motives? Absolutely. An army of thousands camping at his doorstep is a security concern, no matter how pious their stated intentions. Did he and his sophisticated urbane courtiers view you as something of a country bumpkin, a rich rube from the provinces who had more gold than sense? It is very likely. The Cairene court was famously arrogant. They saw themselves as the center of civilization. Your arrival was a fascinating but also slightly worrying disruption to their world order. The Sultan sends emissaries to your camp at Giza, bearing lavish gifts and official greetings, but they are also his eyes and ears trying to gauge the true scale of your wealth and the nature of your intentions. After 3 days of rest and rising anticipation, the day for your formal entry arrives. The Sultan has sent a high-ranking emir to escort you into the city. This is the moment your entire procession was built for. The performance begins. The 500 heralds in their finest silks lead the way, their golden staffs polished to a blinding sheen. You follow mounted on your finest stallion, draped in fabrics and jewels that proclaim your royal status. Behind you, your elite guard, your ministers, your wife, Inari Kunate, with her own vast entourage, and the endless sea of your people. The streets of Cairo are lined with spectators. The Cairenes are no strangers to parades and spectacle, but they have never ever seen anything like this. It is not just the gold, though the sight of it is staggering. It is the scale, the sheer overwhelming number of people. The exotic clothing, the different languages, the quiet discipline of your soldiers, the sheer foreignness and magnitude of it all. The city for a moment is shocked into a stunned, awestruck silence. You have their complete and undivided attention. You are escorted through the grand avenues of the city to a magnificent palace that the Sultan has ordered prepared for you and your inner circle. Servants rush to attend to your every need. You have arrived. The journey across the sea of sand is over. You have reached the first great destination on your pilgrimage. The initial goal to announce your presence to the world, to put Mali on the map, has been accomplished more successfully than you could have ever imagined. The introductions are over. Now the real business of your visit to Cairo can begin. It is time to open the treasury. You settle into the opulent palace the Sultan has provided. It is a world of carved marble, intricate tilework, and courtyards cooled by the gentle splashing of fountains. It is the height of 14th century luxury, the heart of a sophisticated and ancient civilization. Your hosts, the Mamluk elite, are polite, curious, and just a little bit condescending. They see you as a novelty, a king from the wild south, a curiosity to be examined. They have no idea what you are about to do to their city. After a few days of rest and diplomatic pleasantries, you decide it is time to truly begin your mission. You summon your royal treasurers, the men who have guarded the 80 camel loads of gold dust across the Sahara. You give them a simple instruction: open the vaults. It is time to be generous. And your definition of generosity is something the world is not prepared for. What follows is not just spending. It is a carefully orchestrated avalanche of gold that will pour down upon Cairo for the next 3 months. You begin with the official channels. A procession is sent from your palace to the Sultan's citadel, bearing your official gifts for Al-Nasir Muhammad. It is a stunning collection of the finest things your empire produces: magnificent elephant tusks, exotic animal hides, and hundreds of pounds of that other precious commodity, kola nuts. But the bulk of the gift is, of course, gold. Sacks of gold dust, and as a special sign of respect, some of those huge, impressive nuggets that you alone are allowed to possess. The Sultan is floored. But you don't stop there. Every one of his emirs, his viziers, his high-ranking government officials, his military commanders, every person of any importance in the Mamluk court receives a lavish gift of gold. It is a flood of wealth that completely overwhelms the city's elite. It is diplomacy by fire hose. Next, you turn your attention to the religious and intellectual heart of the city. You are, after all, a pious pilgrim. You visit the great mosques, including the ancient and revered Al-Azhar, which is also the world's leading university. You meet with the city's most renowned Islamic scholars, its most respected judges, and its holiest men. You listen to their lectures, you ask for their wisdom and their prayers, and you thank them for their time, with gifts of gold so substantial they can fund their work for years to come. The stories that will later be told claim that you were so moved by the city's piety that you funded the construction of a new mosque every single Friday you were in residence. While that's almost certainly a poetic exaggeration, it captures the spirit of your patronage. You are injecting a massive stimulus package directly into Cairo's religious and academic life. But it is your personal, almost casual generosity that truly cements your legend and throws the city into a frenzy. This is where the quirky tidbit of your golden touch comes to life. It quickly becomes known throughout Cairo that you do not deal in small gestures. Anyone who has any interaction with you, or even with the members of your court, walks away richer. A palace servant who brings you a cool drink is handed a pouch of gold worth more than his entire family earns in a year. A merchant in the Khan el-Khalili Bazaar, who has a fine piece of silk that catches your eye, is paid not just his asking price, but 10 times that. A scholar who answers a question to your satisfaction is rewarded with a handful of gold dust. The news spreads like wildfire. The king of Mali does not just give gifts, he leaks wealth. A sort of Mansa Musa mania grips the city. Whenever you or your brightly robed Malian entourage appear in public, you are mobbed. Not by beggars in the typical sense, but by everyone. Merchants, artisans, children. even well-to-do citizens, all hoping for a chance to catch your eye to offer a compliment, to perform some small service that might result in a sprinkle of golden fortune. Your daily outings become chaotic parades of hope and speculation. It's less like a royal procession, and more like a rolling lottery drawing. So the great historical debate begins. What was the real motivation behind this unprecedented economy-altering generosity? Were you a naive and pious man simply fulfilling your religious duty to give charity sadaqah on a scale that matched your immense wealth? Perhaps still haunted by the story of your mother's death and seeking atonement. In this view, you are a good man who is simply unaccustomed to the complex, silver-based monetary system of Cairo, and you have no real understanding of the economic consequences of your actions. You are a saint of generosity, a holy fool with a heart of gold and a purse to match. Or was this something else entirely? Was this a calculated, brilliant act of geopolitical soft power? In this view, you knew exactly what you were doing. You understood that giving away gold with such reckless abandon was the ultimate power move. It demonstrated to the proud and arrogant Mamluk court that you came from a land where gold was so plentiful it was treated like sand. It was a statement of wealth so profound that it transcended mere economics and became a legend. You weren't just buying goods, you were buying a reputation. You were consciously crafting the story of Mansa Musa, the fabulously wealthy king of Mali, a story that would be told for centuries and ensure your empire was never seen as a backwater again. You were not a naive tourist. You were a master of branding, and the price of wrecking a foreign country's economy was a small one to pay for immortality. The truth, as always, probably lies somewhere in the middle. Your piety was real, but your political savvy was undeniable. For 3 months, this river of gold continues to flow. Gold dust, once the domain of specialized money changers who weighed it carefully, is now seen in the hands of common shopkeepers. It's being used to buy bread. The precious metal that formed the basis of international trade is being treated like pocket change. You have won the love of the common people and the stunned respect of the elite. You are the most famous, most beloved, and most talked about man in the world's greatest city. From your serene palace, everything seems to be going perfectly. But outside your walls, the sheer volume of new gold sloshing around the city is starting to have a very strange and corrosive effect, one that will soon become impossible to ignore. For 3 months you have been the sun around which Cairo revolves. Your generosity has been a warm golden light, and the people of the city have basked in it. You have achieved everything you set out to do. Your name is spoken with reverence in the mosques, with awe in the markets, and with a grudging respect in the Sultan's court. But as your stay draws to a close, your ministers of finance, the men who manage the distribution of your endless wealth, begin to bring you troubling reports. The reports are not about shortages or security threats. They are about prices, and they don't make any sense. A bag of flour that cost 5 silver dirhams when you arrived now costs 10. The price of fine cloth has doubled. The value of a house when measured in gold has plummeted. At first, you dismiss it as the natural chaos caused by your entourage's free spending. But the trend continues, and a slow, dawning realization begins to settle in. You, in your magnificent attempt to show the world the depth of your piety and the scale of your wealth, have accidentally broken their economy. You have, without meaning, to given the entire city of Cairo a hands-on lesson in the law of supply and demand. It's a simple, brutal rule. When something is rare, it is precious. When it is common, its value falls. For centuries, gold has been the ultimate measure of rarity and value. But you have brought so much of it and distributed it with such joyful abandon that you have fundamentally changed the equation. You made gold common. You have in effect demonstrated what would happen if it suddenly started raining diamonds. At first, it's wonderful for everyone who gets a bucketful, but soon, there are so many diamonds lying around that their value collapses, and the only thing they're good for is skipping across a pond. The Mamluk Sultanate's economy was a complex system based on both gold dinars and silver dirhams. By flooding the market with tons of new gold, you completely diluted its value. The gold dinar, once the stalwart currency of the elite, became weak and untrustworthy. People started hoarding the more stable silver coins. The historian Al-Makrizi, writing about your visit years later, would note that the value of gold in Cairo crashed and the market did not fully recover for more than 12 years. You did not just cause a temporary blip. You triggered a decade-long recession in the gold market of the most powerful economic center in the world. It's the 14th century equivalent of a single tourist going on a shopping spree so extravagant that it causes a Wall Street crash. And this is where historians debate the human side of this economic catastrophe. Was everyone in Cairo simply a confused victim of this strange golden tsunami? Or were there sharks swimming in the water? The more romantic view is that this was a new and baffling phenomenon for everyone. But a more cynical and likely more accurate view is that a few very clever Cairene money changers and merchants saw exactly what was happening and played the situation perfectly. Imagine a savvy old merchant in the bazaar. One of your courtiers pays him a ridiculously large pouch of gold for a few carpets. The merchant, seeing that this is happening all over the city, doesn't hold on to the gold. He immediately takes his windfall and trades it for things with more stable long-term value land real estate, a controlling interest in a warehouse, or huge quantities of silver. He gets rid of the gold while its value is still high, letting some other poor soul hold on to it as it deflates. While the average person who was paid in gold saw their newfound wealth melt away like ice in the sun, a handful of shrewd operators likely made fortunes quietly converting your generosity into hard assets. The story goes that when your advisors finally explain the full extent of the damage to you, you are horrified. This was never your intention. Your goal was to perform an act of great piety, to give charity to showcase the glory of God and your kingdom. The idea that your generosity has inadvertently caused hardship and economic chaos is a stain on your honor. And so, in a move that truly reveals your character, you decide to try and fix it. In one of the most fascinating but little-known episodes of your journey, you attempt to single-handedly reverse the inflation you caused. You go back to the very same Cairene merchants you showered with gold, and you ask to borrow it back. But you don't just ask for it. You offer to borrow it at an exorbitant rate of interest. You are now paying people to let you take your own gold out of circulation. It is a stunningly sophisticated concept for its time, a medieval version of a central bank's quantitative tightening, trying to shrink the money supply to prop up its value. It's a noble, almost heroic gesture. You are trying to unring a bell to put the water back into the fire hose. Ultimately, it is too little too late. The gold is too widely dispersed. The damage to its perceived value has been done. But the attempt itself speaks volumes. It shows that you were not just a clueless showman. You had a conscience, and you were willing to spend even more money to try and undo the damage your money had already caused. As your 3-month stay comes to an end, the mood in the city is a strange cocktail of awe and confusion. Your name is forever etched into their history. You are the great king of Mali, the man who bled gold. But you are also the man who broke their markets. The economic chaos will be your unintended legacy here. You prepare your caravan to depart, to finally continue on to the holy cities. You must leave the Mamluks to sort through the gilded mess you have left behind. Your relationship with their sultan, already a complex dance of protocol and power, is about to get even more complicated as the full weight of what you've done begins to sink in. Your time in Cairo is ending. The 3-month stay that felt like an eternity and a single moment all at once is drawing to a close. You have left an indelible mark on the city, a chaotic golden crater of generosity and economic disruption. But before you can lead your people toward the Sinai Peninsula and the sacred lands of the Hejaz, there is one final crucial piece of business. You must meet the Sultan, Al-Nasir Muhammad, face to face. So far, all your interactions have been through emissaries and lavish gifts. Now you must enter the Lion's Den, the great citadel that looms over Cairo, and greet the most powerful ruler in the Islamic world. The invitation arrives as much a summons as a request. Your chief advisors confer with the Sultan's protocol officials, and they return to you with grave faces. They explain the required etiquette for an audience with the Sultan. Upon entering the grand throne room, the Diwan, you will be expected to perform the customary act of submission. You must kneel and kiss the ground before the throne. Then you must approach and kiss the Sultan's hand. You listen to this, and a quiet but unshakable resolve forms within you. No, absolutely not. You are Mansa Musa, Emperor of the vast and mighty Mali Empire, the richest man on earth. But more than that, you are a pilgrim, a servant of God. You bow to Allah, and to Allah alone. To kiss the ground before a mortal man, even a sultan, as powerful as al-Nasir, is an act of subservience that your pride and your piety will not allow. You politely but firmly refuse. This refusal sends a shockwave through the diplomatic channels. In the rigid, hierarchical world of the Mamluk court, this is unthinkable. It is a snub of the highest order. The Sultan's officials are aghast. The Sultan himself is by all accounts deeply offended. A tense behind-the-scenes standoff ensues. For days, messengers run back and forth between your palace and the citadel. The Mamluks insist the protocol is ancient, it is unbreakable. To waive it for you would be to diminish the Sultan's own status in the eyes of his court. You in turn hold your ground, but you do it with political genius. Your excuse is not based on your own royal pride. It is based on faith. You send back a simple, unimpeachable message. I am a man of pilgrimage. I have traveled thousands of miles to bow before God in his holy cities. It would not be right for me to bow to another man before I have fulfilled that vow. My prostration is for God alone. You have framed your stubbornness as an act of profound piety, making it incredibly difficult for them to argue against without looking impious themselves. This moment reveals the complex relationship between you and your host, a topic historians still love to debate. What did these two powerful men really think of each other? Was al-Nasir just tolerating you, seeing you as a wildly rich but ultimately unsophisticated king from the fringes of civilization who didn't understand how things were done? Or had your staggering display of wealth, the disciplined army at your command, and now your unshakable sense of self-worth forced him to see you as something more? This wasn't a meeting of friends. It was a cold, hard negotiation of status. Every gesture, every word was a move on a geopolitical chessboard. Was the Sultan infuriated by your refusal? Or was some small part of him the part that was a king himself, grudgingly impressed by your audacity? Finally, after days of stalemate, a compromise is engineered, likely by a clever courtier who can see a path through the impasse. You agree to attend the audience. The Mamluks, for their part, seem to have accepted your pious reasoning, or at least have agreed to let the scene play out. You prepare yourself, dress in your finest robes, and ride to the citadel. You are escorted into the legendary Diwan. It is a cavernous hall, its high ceiling supported by massive columns. The air is thick with the smell of incense. Along the walls stand the Mamluk emirs, a fearsome lineup of the world's most formidable warriors, clad in silk and steel, their faces impassive. And at the far end of the hall, on a magnificent raised throne, sits the Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad, watching your every move. The entire court holds its breath. This is the moment of truth. You walk slowly, deliberately toward the throne. The silence is absolute. You reach the designated spot. You pause. Then you begin to lower yourself, as if to perform the dreaded prostration. The Mamluk officials nod slightly, a look of smug satisfaction on their faces. The upstart king has bent the knee after all. But then, in a movement of pure theatrical genius, you stop your descent. You are halfway to the floor when you suddenly turn your body, just slightly, to face the direction of Mecca, and proclaim in a loud, clear voice for the entire court to hear. I prostrate myself only before God, who created me and brought me here. And with that, you perform a full and sincere prayer right there on the magnificent carpet of the Sultan's throne room. You bow, you kneel, you touch your forehead to the ground. It is a moment of sublime, face-saving brilliance. You have technically fulfilled the letter of the law. You did prostrate yourself in the Sultan's presence, but you did it for God explicitly and publicly, completely subverting the act's intended meaning of submission to a mortal ruler. You have obeyed the rule while shattering its spirit. After your prayer, you rise with dignity. The court is stunned into silence, unsure of how to react. You have outmaneuvered them completely. You now approach the throne not as a subordinate, but as a fellow monarch who has just finished his prayers. You greet the Sultan. He, likely masking a complex storm of annoyance and grudging admiration, greets you in return. Your formal conversation is brief, filled with the flowery but hollow pleasantries of international diplomacy. The ordeal is over. You have met the lion and walked away with your status not only intact but enhanced. You are not just the unbelievably rich king from Mali. You are the pious, proud, and clever king who outwitted the infamously rigid Mamluk court. With this final piece of business concluded, there is nothing left for you in Cairo. You give the order to your caravan. It is time to leave the city of splendor and recession behind. You turn your face east toward the vast empty Sinai and the sacred goal that lies beyond. Leaving Cairo is a relief. The magnificent, chaotic, politically charged city fades behind you, and you lead your caravan into the stark, silent beauty of the Sinai Peninsula. The air changes, becoming drier, cleaner. The journey is still arduous, a formidable desert crossing in its own right, but the mood is different. The political maneuvering is over. The economic shockwave you unleashed is someone else's problem now. Your focus becomes singular, narrowed down to the original purpose that set this whole grand endeavor in motion nearly a year ago. You are a pilgrim, and you are nearing your destination. The heart of your caravan beats with a quiet spiritual anticipation. After weeks of travel, you cross the Red Sea and finally set foot in the sacred land of the Hejaz. And then one day your scouts return with the news. Mecca is near. As your caravan crests a final hill, you see it. Nestled in a valley surrounded by barren rocky mountains lies the holy city. This is it, the geographical and spiritual center of your entire faith. For you, this is not just a destination. It is a culmination. It is the reason for the thousands of miles, the reason for the tons of gold, the reason for leaving your kingdom behind. A profound sense of awe of having finally truly arrived settles over you. The first thing you must do is shed the trappings of your immense wealth and status. Your elaborate jewel-encrusted robes are packed away. Your golden rings are removed. You, the richest man on earth, now dress in the same simple garments as every other male pilgrim, 2 pieces of seamless white cloth known as the ihram. It is a powerful symbol of humility and equality before God. Dressed in this simple uniform, you are in theory no different from the poorest farmer from Persia or the humblest fisherman from the Swahili coast, who has saved his entire life to make this same journey. You enter the city and proceed to the Masjid al-Haram, the great mosque, and you see it for the first time with your own eyes, the Kaaba. The simple, perfect black cube draped in a silken cloth embroidered with gold. It is the literal house of God, the direction you have faced in prayer 5 times a day for your entire life. Now you are here. You join the great swirling river of humanity, the tens of thousands of pilgrims in performing the tawaf. You circle the Kaaba, 7 times counterclockwise part of a massive living galaxy of devotion. The sound is overwhelming, a constant roar of thousands of voices chanting the talbiyah in 100 different accents. Here I am, O God, here I am. You perform the other rites of the Hajj. The sa'i, the brisk walk 7 times between the small hills of Safa and Marwa, reenacting Hagar's desperate search for water for her son Ishmael. You travel to the plains of Arafat, standing in prayer from noon to sunset, begging for God's forgiveness in the most important rite of the entire pilgrimage. Even here in this great melting pot of the Islamic world, you are still Mansa Musa. Your massive entourage camped outside the city, and the ever-present personal guard that accompanies you make you impossible to miss. This raises a question that historians consider. How was a black African king truly received by the Arab authorities and population of Mecca? The ideals of Islam preach that there is no distinction between an Arab and a non-Arab, or a black man and a white man, except in piety. But 14th century reality was often more complex. Was your otherness a factor? Was there an undercurrent of cultural or racial prejudice beneath the surface of religious unity? The consensus is that whatever potential prejudice might have existed was completely and utterly bulldozed by your two most prominent qualities, your profound visible piety and your unbelievable generosity. It is very hard to maintain a sense of superiority over a man who is not only performing the rituals with sincere devotion, but is also single-handedly bankrolling the entire city, because your spending does not stop in Mecca. If anything, it becomes more focused. Here, it is not about showing off. It is about charity pure and simple. The chronicles report that you gave away a staggering amount of gold, some say 20,000 gold pieces, to the authorities of the city, to religious scholars, to the keepers of the mosque, and to the poor. But more than that, you became the patron saint of your fellow pilgrims. It was common for people to arrive in Mecca having spent their life savings just to get there with no money left for food or for the journey home. You, it is said, would seek these people out and pay their debts, buy them food, and give them the funds to return home. You were not just performing your own Hajj, you were making it possible for countless others to complete theirs. After the rituals in Mecca are complete, you lead your caravan north to the city of Medina, the city of the Prophet. The atmosphere here is different. If Mecca is the thrumming, powerful heart of Islam, Medina is its serene soul. And here you perform the most personal, and for you, perhaps the most important act of your entire pilgrimage. You visit Al-Masjid an-Nabawi, the Prophet's mosque, and you are granted access to the tomb of the Prophet Muhammad himself. Here, at the final resting place of the man who founded your faith, you offer your prayers. If the story of you seeking atonement for your mother's death is true, this is the moment of final, tearful confession. This is where you unburden your soul and beg for the Prophet's spiritual intercession. This is the emotional climax of your quest for redemption. You have done it. The Hajj is complete. You have fulfilled the fifth pillar. A sense of profound peace of a mission accomplished settles over you. The weight of your spiritual duty has been lifted. You have seen the holy places prayed with the global community of believers and given charity on a scale that will be talked about for 1,000 years. But as the spiritual weight lifts, a new, more practical one descends. Your journey is only half over. Your once overflowing treasury is now significantly lighter, and you have to get tens of thousands of people and what remains of your fortune all the way back across the deserts and home to Mali. The long, difficult road back is about to begin. The spiritual peace you found in the holy cities is a profound and comforting blanket for your soul. You have done it. You have fulfilled the great duty. But as you lead your caravan out of the Hejaz and turn your face west once more, you find that a spiritual blanket, no matter how comforting, does little to solve a looming and very practical problem. Your treasurers, the men who once oversaw a seemingly infinite river of gold, now approach you with quiet, worried faces. The river has dwindled to a trickle. The sacks of gold dust are alarmingly light. Many are completely empty. The journey home, you realize, will be very different. The outbound trip was a performance, a grand procession of wealth and power. The return trip will be an exercise in endurance. The mood of the caravan shifts. The joyful, expectant energy is gone, replaced by a weary, road-worn quiet. The thousands of miles of desert that lie between you and the green lands of home now seem twice as long, twice as menacing. Your first major stop on the return leg is once again Cairo. But you do not arrive this time as a magnificent godlike benefactor descending from the heavens to shower the city in gold. You arrive as a king with a cash flow problem. A very, very big cash flow problem. Your entourage of 60,000 people is still with you. They still need to be fed. The soldiers still expect their pay. The thousands of camels and horses still need fodder. The sheer daily cost of maintaining your moving city, a cost you barely noticed when your coffers were overflowing, is now a crushing weight. You, Mansa Musa, the richest man in the world, have run out of spending money, and so you are faced with the ultimate humbling irony. You must take out a loan. Your emissaries are sent not to the Sultan's court this time, but to the great merchant houses of Cairo. And who are the masters of these houses? They are the very same men you made rich on your way through. Men like the canny merchant Siraj al-Din, who had the foresight to see your generosity for the economic phenomenon it was. They greet your request for a loan with polite, professional courtesy, but you can see the glint in their eyes. They have you, the great Mansa of Mali, right where they want you. Imagine the scene. You who caused a decade-long recession in their gold market out of sheer, unadulterated wealth are now sitting across from a merchant haggling over terms. The power dynamic has completely inverted. The merchants know you are desperate. You have a city-sized caravan to support and a continent to cross. You have no other options. And so they name their price. The interest rates they charge you are by all accounts astronomical. They are lending your own gold back to you at a premium. They managed to profit from you when you were giving money away, and now they are profiting from you when you have none left to give. It is a masterclass in capitalism, and you are its star pupil. This, of course, is the great puzzle that fascinates historians. How could you, the man whose name is synonymous with unimaginable wealth, actually run out of money? Did you truly, honestly miscalculate that badly? Was your generosity so impulsive, so boundless, that you simply failed to budget for the return trip? This is the simplest explanation, and the one that makes for the best story. It paints you as a man whose piety was so immense it was financially irresponsible, a man who was better at being a saint than an accountant. You were just so committed to giving that you forgot you had to keep some for yourself. But other historians wonder if it was more complex. Was the borrowing a strategic move? Some suggest it was a clever way to re-engage with the Cairene economy, to re-establish the value of gold by showing that even you had to procure it at a high price. Others wonder if it was a pre-arranged line of credit, a way of formalizing the trade relationships you had just established. Perhaps the loan was actually a complex trade agreement swapping future shipments of salt or other Malian goods for the liquid gold you needed immediately. Or maybe the reality is simply that your personal mobile treasury ran dry, while the bulk of your empire's wealth remained safe in the vaults back in Nyani, thousands of miles away. You weren't broke, you just had a temporary liquidity crisis of epic proportions. Whatever the reason, the effect is the same. You secure the funds you need, but your pride has taken a significant hit. The triumphant procession that left Cairo for Mecca is replaced by a much more subdued caravan heading west. The journey back across the Sahara is a grim affair. There is no more casual gift-giving. Rations are carefully managed. The pace is forced. The 500 heralds still carry their golden staffs, but the gesture now seems less like a display of effortless wealth and more like a memory of a party that has long since ended. Their arms must be incredibly tired by now. The long, hypnotic rhythm of the desert march returns, but this time it is tinged with anxiety and a desperate, weary desire to simply be home. After what feels like an eternity of sand and sky, you finally cross the threshold back into your own lands. The first sight of the Sahel, the familiar acacia trees, and the rich red earth of home brings a wave of relief so powerful it almost brings you to your knees. You have done it. You have taken your people to the holiest sites of your faith and brought them back. You return spiritually renewed, but also fundamentally changed. You have seen the great cities of the world. You have met their scholars, and you have learned a very harsh lesson in international finance. You arrive back in your capital of Nyani, not just as a pious pilgrim who has fulfilled his duty, but as a king with a new grand vision for his own empire, a vision you are determined to build. Your journey is over, but its true impact is just about to begin. You return to Nyani, your capital city. You sit on your throne, the same throne you left what feels like a lifetime ago. The wood feels the same, the great hall looks the same, but you are not the same. The world you rule over has not changed, but your perception of it has been fundamentally altered. You have seen the great cities of the Mamluks and the Hejaz. You have walked the hallowed halls of Al-Azhar University. You have prayed in mosques of breathtaking beauty and scale, and you have spoken with scholars whose knowledge seemed as deep as the ocean your predecessor tried to cross. and you have come to a profound realization. Your empire is wealthy, impossibly wealthy. You have more gold than any kingdom on earth. But you now understand that there is a different kind of wealth, a wealth measured not in camel loads of gold dust, but in libraries full of books. A wealth measured not by the size of your treasury, but by the brilliance of your scholars. You saw in Cairo a city that was not just powerful, but also learned. A city that was a hub of ideas, a magnet for the greatest minds of the age. And you have returned home with a new, all-consuming vision. You will not simply rule over the richest empire in Africa. You will rule over the most enlightened one. You will build your own Cairo, your own Cordoba, right here in the heart of West Africa. This new vision had its seeds in the Hajj itself. The journey wasn't just a pilgrimage. It was the most extravagant and successful recruitment drive in history. You didn't just return with a renewed sense of faith and a ledger full of debt. You returned with people. On the long journey home, your caravan was dotted with new faces, scholars from Cairo, jurists from Mecca, theologians from Fez. You had used your immense wealth and the sheer force of your charisma to persuade some of the finest minds you met to leave their established homes and journey with you to the semi-mythical land of Mali. You offered them patronage, respect, and a chance to be part of building something new. They are the human seeds of your new cultural renaissance. But even more important than the people you brought back were the things they carried. On the return journey, many of the camels that once groaned under the weight of gold dust were now laden with a different kind of treasure. You had gone on a book-buying spree. In the great markets of Cairo and the holy cities, you purchased hundreds of manuscripts, heavy leather-bound volumes containing the masterworks of Islamic thought. Books on Maliki law, the school of jurisprudence, followed in your empire. Deep theological treatises, commentaries on the Quran, collections of the traditions of the Prophet, but also books on astronomy, on mathematics, on medicine, on philosophy, and on history. You effectively imported an entire university library. These books are to your new way of thinking infinitely more precious than the gold you spent on them. They are the intellectual bedrock upon which you will build your legacy. Now historians in their usual way debate the nature of this golden age you are about to kickstart. Was this transformation purely your invention? A top-down project willed into existence by the sheer force of your personality and your checkbook. This great man view of history certainly gives you all the credit. It paints you as a visionary who single-handedly saw a cultural vacuum in your empire and decided to fill it with imported knowledge. However, a more nuanced, and likely more accurate view, is that you were less of an inventor and more of a supercharged accelerator. Timbuktu and Gao. Your cities on the Great Bend of the Niger River were already important hubs on the trans-Saharan trade routes. For decades, they had been crossroads not just for salt and gold, but for ideas. A slow trickle of scholars and books had already been flowing into the region, drawn by the commercial dynamism. The fire of intellectual curiosity was already smoldering. What you did was arrive with an ocean of gasoline. Your patronage, your fame, and the international connections you forged on the Hajj turned that slow trickle of knowledge into a raging flood. You put Timbuktu on the world map, making it the most attractive and prestigious destination for any scholar seeking knowledge and patronage in all of Africa. You didn't start the fire, perhaps, but you certainly fanned it into a glorious inferno. Your capital, Niani, is the political heart of your empire, but you know it is not the right place for this new project. Your eyes turn north to Timbuktu. You have recently and formally incorporated this city into your empire during your journey, and you see its potential. Look at its location on a map. It sits at the top of the Great Bend of the Niger River, the closest point the river comes to the Sahara. It is the perfect meeting place. It is where the camel meets the canoe. The salt caravans from the north can go no further south, and the river barges, carrying the gold and grain from your heartlands, can go no further north into the desert. It is the natural bottleneck, the nexus point for all trade and travel. And you realize that a city that is a crossroads for goods will inevitably become a crossroads for ideas. This is where you will build your city of learning. You are home. You are spiritually fulfilled. You are humbled, but also inspired. You have your new vision, a grand project to transform your kingdom. You have the human talent, the imported scholars ready to teach. You have the intellectual fuel, the library of books you so carefully brought back with you. And you have your chosen canvas, the dusty but promising city of Timbuktu. All the pieces are in place. Now you just need someone to draw up the blueprints. You need an architect, a master builder who can take the grand visions in your head and turn them into magnificent structures of brick, timber, and clay. And you know just the man for the job. Your vision is clear, but a vision without a builder is just a dream. You can't construct a legacy out of ideas alone. You need stone, timber, and clay, and you need a master who knows how to command them. As you ponder this in your court at Nyani, your mind drifts back through the long months of your pilgrimage. You sift through the memories of the hundreds of fascinating people you met. Your thoughts push past the stuffy court officials in Cairo, past the pious scholars in Mecca, and land on one man in particular. A man you met who was different. A man whose conversation was as elegant as his poetry. His name was Abu Ishaq al-Sahili. He was not just a builder. Al-Sahili was a product of a world you deeply admired, Al-Andalus Muslim Spain. Though its power was fading by your time, the legend of Andalusian culture was as potent as ever. It was a land renowned for its breathtaking architecture, its brilliant poets, its refined and cosmopolitan culture. Al-Sahili embodied this. He was a poet whose words were famous across the Mediterranean, an accomplished scholar, and most importantly for you, a skilled architect who understood the grand traditions of Moorish design. You met him perhaps in the bustling pilgrim crowds of Mecca, or during your long stay in Cairo, and you were immediately impressed. Here was a man who possessed the artistic and intellectual sophistication you wanted to import into your own kingdom, and so you made him an offer that he must have thought was a desert-induced hallucination. You, the king of a land he likely only knew from merchants' tales, invited him to leave the familiar world of the Mediterranean behind and accompany you back to the heart of West Africa. Imagine his perspective. He is being asked to abandon the world of marble columns and intricate tilework for a dusty, sun-baked empire thousands of miles away. It must have sounded like madness. But you did not just offer him a job. You sold him a vision. You spoke of your desire to build a new center of learning, to construct mosques that would rival those of Cairo, to raise a city of knowledge from the sands of the Sahara. You offered him something more valuable than a salary. You offered him a canvas. You offered him the chance to be the lead architect for an entire empire's cultural rebirth, a legacy that would be entirely his, built with a budget that was effectively limitless. And to sweeten the deal, to show you were serious, you made him an offer of payment that has become a legend in itself. The chronicles, which tend to get a bit breathless when it comes to your spending, report that you paid Al-Sahili a staggering sum of gold for his services. The exact amount varies by the telling. Some say it was 40,000 mithqals of gold. Others claim it was as high as 200,000. A mithqal was about 4.25 grams of gold, so we are talking about a payment of somewhere between 170 and 850 kilograms of pure gold. It was a signing bonus of such monumental proportions that it made Al-Sahili the poet one of the wealthiest men in the Islamic world overnight. It was the kind of job offer that makes a man very willing to overlook a long commute. So the deal was struck. The Andalusian poet-architect, his bags suddenly and extremely heavy, joined your caravan for the long journey back to Mali. Imagine his arrival in Timbuktu. A man accustomed to the green hills of Granada, looking out over a sprawling, bustling, but distinctly dusty city on the edge of the world's greatest desert. The culture shock must have been immense. The architectural language was completely different. But a genius like Al-Sahili would not have seen limitations. He would have seen potential. He would have seen the unique beauty of the local materials and the skill of the local masons. He saw his challenge how to blend the grandeur of his Andalusian heritage with the practical realities of this new environment. And this is where the great architectural debate begins. What was Al-Sahili's true contribution? The traditional story casts him as a great innovator, a man who brought revolutionary new techniques to West Africa. In this version, he is the one who introduced the use of burnt brick, a more durable material than the traditional sun-dried mud brick. He is credited with creating the distinctive regional style of architecture we now call Sudano-Sahelian, with its characteristic pyramidal minarets, flat roofs, and the wooden beams or toran that jut out from the walls, serving as both structural support and ready-made scaffolding. However, modern historians and archaeologists have a more complex and frankly more interesting take. They argue that al-Sahili was less of a pure innovator and more of a brilliant synthesizer. Many of these techniques, including the use of toran, and even some forms of brick firing, likely already existed in the region in some form. What al-Sahili brought was his formal training, his grand vision, and his understanding of proportion harmony and scale from the great mosques of Spain and North Africa. His genius was not in inventing a new style from scratch, but in taking the best of both worlds. He fused the monumental designs of his homeland with the local materials and building traditions of Mali. He showed local builders how their techniques could be used to create structures of a size and elegance they had never attempted before. He was not just an architect. He was a teacher and a collaborator who helped perfect a style, elevating it into an art form that would define the region for centuries. He was a skilled adapter, not just an inventor, and that is arguably a far greater talent. Your first commission for your new, fabulously wealthy royal architect is a test of his abilities. You ask him to design and oversee the construction of two key buildings. The first is a magnificent new mosque for the people of Timbuktu, a center for their prayer and learning. The second is a new palace or grand audience chamber for you, a place where you can receive dignitaries in a style befitting your new international status. The stage is now perfectly set. Your vision for a cultural renaissance has its architect. The Andalusian poet stands in the heart of Timbuktu, the gold you gave him safely stored away, ready to get to work. The transformation of a trading post into a timeless city of legend is about to begin, one mud brick at a time. Under the direction of your new star architect al-Sahili, the city of Timbuktu begins to transform. The air once filled only with the sounds of merchants haggling and camels groaning now buzzes with a new kind of energy. The rhythmic chanting of work crews, the slap of wet clay being molded into bricks, and the steady thud of mallets on timber. Your vision is taking physical form, and the entire city has become a construction site fueled by your ambition and funded by the seemingly bottomless credit you secured in Cairo. The flagship project, the jewel in the crown of your new architectural campaign, is the great congregational mosque, the Jingureber Mosque. This will be the city's main center for Friday prayers, a structure large enough to house a significant portion of the population, a monument to the glory of both God and your reign. Al-Sahili gets to work his genius for adaptation on full display. He does not try to build a marble palace in the desert. He embraces the local materials but elevates them. Thousands of laborers are put to work. They mix the rich, dark clay from the banks of the Niger River with straw and rice husks to give it strength. They form this mixture into tens of thousands of sun-dried bricks, or ferre, leaving them to bake hard under the relentless African sun. Under al-Sahili's supervision, the walls begin to rise. He designs a vast, flat-roofed prayer hall, its ceiling supported by a forest of thick, earthen pillars. This design is not just for aesthetics. The massive pillars and thick walls create a space that remains remarkably cool and shaded, a welcome respite from the heat outside. The centerpiece of the structure is its minaret, a striking pyramidal tower that tapers towards the sky, unlike anything seen in the grand mosques of Cairo or Damascus. It is a new style being born a fusion of Andalusian proportion and Sahelian form. As the walls rise, you notice a peculiar feature of the design, a detail that perfectly illustrates the genius of al-Sahili's adaptive style. Jutting out from the exterior walls in neat, regular rows are hundreds of wooden beams, the polished trunks of palm trees, their ends poking out into the open air. This is the famous Toran style, and it's a brilliant fusion of form and function. To a stranger, it might look like a quirky decoration, a rustic mud and stick aesthetic. But you understand its true purpose. Your architect is planning for the future. The mud plaster exterior of the mosque is vulnerable. Every year, the brief but intense rainy season threatens to wash away the protective outer layer, exposing the structural bricks beneath to erosion. The building needs a new coat of plaster every single year to survive. Those jutting Tehran beams are not decoration. They are permanent scaffolding. They are a built-in solution to the problem of maintenance. Each year in a citywide festival known as the Crépissage de la Grande Mosquée, the entire community will gather to re-plaster the mosque. The young men of the city, like ants on a log, will clamber up these beams, passing buckets of fresh clay up to the highest parts of the wall. Al-Sahili has not just designed a building. He has designed a tradition weaving the mosque's survival into the very fabric of the community's life. While Jingwareber rises as the new heart of the city's religious life, you turn your attention to its mind. You focus on the Sankore Quarter, an area already known for its collection of small, informal schools. Here, your project is not to build from scratch, but to elevate what already exists. The old Sankore Mosque was a respectable but modest building. You pour your resources into transforming it. Under Al-Sahili's guidance, it is massively expanded with new prayer halls, a grander courtyard, and a minaret built in the same imposing style as Jingwareber. But the most important investment you make in Sankore is not in its bricks and mortar. It is in its people and its library. You formally endow the mosque, providing salaries for the learned scholars you brought back from your Hajj, and you donate the hundreds of precious books you so carefully transported across the desert, creating the nucleus of a great library. This is the act that truly transforms the Sankore Mosque into the University of Sankore. Now the term university is one that historians debate. To a modern ear, it conjures images of a single centralized institution, with formal lecture halls, a set curriculum, and official degrees. Sankore was something different, something more organic. It was not a single entity, but a collective of dozens of independent masters, each with his own circle of students. It was more like a constellation of small, informal graduate schools that all orbited the physical space of the mosque. A student would not enroll in Sankore University. Instead, he would travel to Timbuktu and seek out a master known for his expertise in a particular subject. He might study grammar and rhetoric with one scholar for a few years, living in his master's home, and upon completing his studies move on to another master across the courtyard to learn Islamic law or astronomy. Graduation was not a single ceremony, but a recognition by one's master that the student had achieved a level of expertise worthy of teaching others. The curriculum was broad and surprisingly classical, encompassing not just deep theological study of the Quran, but also logic, mathematics, rhetoric, ethics, history, and the sciences, particularly astronomy, which was essential for determining prayer times and the direction of Mecca. You watch as these two great institutions take shape. Jingwareber stands as a testament to your power and the unifying force of faith for the common person. Sankore stands as a beacon for the intellectual elite, a place where the knowledge of the Islamic world is not just stored, but debated, expanded, and taught to a new generation of West African scholars. The physical infrastructure of your grand vision is now complete. The hardware has been installed. Now all that is left is to watch as Timbuktu's golden age truly begins. The scaffolding comes down from the face of the Jingwareber Mosque. The last of the construction debris is cleared away. The dust settles. You stand back and look at what you have wrought. Where there was once a sprawling but unremarkable trading post, there is now a city with a skyline defined by faith and learning. The monumental pyramidal minarets of your new mosques have reshaped the horizon, but the physical transformation is only the beginning. Now you get to watch as the city's very soul begins to change. The first and most visible change is in the city's social structure. The new elite of Timbuktu are not warriors or princes of noble birth. They are the scholars, the men you recruited from across the Islamic world, and the brilliant local minds who are drawn to the flame of your patronage become the city's most respected figures. They are the judges who settle disputes in the marketplace. They are the advisors to wealthy merchants consulting on the ethics of complex trade deals. They are the theologians who guide the city's spiritual life from the pulpits of your new mosques. Their influence is everywhere, and a culture of deep respect for knowledge and learning begins to permeate every aspect of life in Timbuktu. This new culture creates a new economy. While the trade in gold from the south and salt from the north continues to be the bedrock of the city's wealth, a new commodity becomes just as precious, and in many cases, far more profitable. That commodity is books. Timbuktu becomes the center of the African book trade. A whole new industry springs up around the Sankore Mosque. Scribes, men with beautiful handwriting and a deep knowledge of Arabic, set up workshops. They spend their days painstakingly copying the rare and valuable manuscripts you brought back from your Hajj, as well as new works being written by the local scholars. The economics of it are fascinating. A merchant preparing a caravan to cross the Sahara to Tunis or Granada has to make a calculation. He can load his camels with ivory, or spices, or gold dust. Or he can load them with a few carefully chosen, beautifully copied books on medicine, law, or philosophy. The books weigh less, and a single rare manuscript unavailable in the northern markets can fetch a price far higher than its equivalent weight in gold. Knowledge literally becomes more valuable than gold. Your city's most profitable export is now its intellectual property. This reverence for books trickles down into the personal lives of the city's residents, creating a wonderfully quirky new measure of wealth and status. In other cities, a man might show off his fortune by the size of his home, the fineness of his robes, or the number of his horses. In Timbuktu's golden age, you are judged by the size of your library. Wealthy merchants who make their fortunes in the salt and gold trade now compete with each other to amass the most impressive private collection of manuscripts. They commission scribes to create beautiful, illuminated copies of famous texts. The most important room in a rich man's house is no longer the reception hall with its plush carpets, but the library with its shelves of leather-bound volumes. It creates a beautiful, virtuous cycle. The profits from commerce are funneled into acquiring knowledge, and the knowledge gained from the books in law. Ethics and mathematics helps the merchants become even better at commerce. But this raises a question that historians still debate: just how deep did this culture of literacy go? Was Timbuktu a shining city on a hill, where everyone from the grand scholar to the humble baker could read and write? The romantic image is certainly appealing, but the reality was likely more layered. There was without a doubt a hyper-literate elite, the scholars their students, and the wealthy merchant class, who saw books as a vital part of their life and business. This group was perhaps larger and more influential than in any other city of its time and place. Below them, however, was a vast population of artisans, caravan drivers, masons, and laborers. It's unlikely that literacy in the sense of being able to sit down and read a complex philosophical text was common among this group. So was it a city of widespread illiteracy? Not exactly. Think of it as a city of widespread knowledge absorption. The illiterate mason might not be able to read the Quran himself, but he would hear it recited and explained every Friday in the Jingwereber mosque you built. The camel driver might not be able to read a book on Islamic law, but he would know who the great jurists of the Sankore Mosque were, and he would understand and respect their authority. Knowledge was valued by everyone, even if the ability to read it was concentrated in the hands of a few thousand people. Life in the city settles into a new, intellectually vibrant rhythm. In the cool courtyard of the Sankore Mosque, you can see a master and his students sitting in a circle on a reed mat debating a fine point of inheritance law. In a quiet workshop nearby, a scribe carefully mixes ink from gum, Arabic, and soot, preparing to copy a newly acquired Arabic translation of a work by the ancient Greek physician Galen. In the bustling marketplace, a salt merchant approaches a scholar not for a loan, but for advice on whether his latest trade contract is compliant with Islamic ethical principles. You have done it. Your patronage has transformed Timbuktu. It is no longer a mere stopover, a place to trade goods. It is a destination in its own right, a city of towering mud-brick mosques and even taller reputations. Its name is now whispered with reverence in the great universities of North Africa and the Middle East, a beacon of learning and stability in West Africa. This fame, however, does not exist in a vacuum. The stories of your wealth, your journey, and your magnificent city of scholars have been spreading, and they have finally begun to reach the ears of mapmakers on the other side of the Mediterranean. Your new Timbuktu is a beacon, and like any beacon, its light travels. In the 14th century, light travels in the form of stories carried in the minds of merchants, pilgrims, and scholars. Every caravan that leaves your city heading north across the Sahara, every pilgrim who returns home to Morocco or Egypt, every merchant who trades your books for North African textiles, they all carry with them the tales of your empire. They speak of the great mosques of Timbuktu, the brilliant scholars of Sankore, and above all, they retell the now legendary story of your pilgrimage to Mecca. They speak of the king who depressed the price of gold in Cairo simply by giving it away. These stories travel along the ancient grapevine of the medieval world, and like any story passed from person to person, they grow and change with each telling. This is where historians debate the line between fact and fantasy. The tale of your 60,000-person entourage becomes a 100,000-person army. The 18 tons of gold you carried becomes a mountain of solid gold from which you carved your palace. The stories travel along two main routes. One path goes through Cairo, where the Venetian and Genoese merchants who witnessed your visit firsthand carry the tales back to the powerful maritime republics of Italy. The other path goes straight across the desert with the Jewish and Berber traders who have long managed the Saharan routes, bringing the stories to the bustling ports of the Mediterranean, especially to the island of Majorca. Now you must transport your mind from the sun-baked plains of Mali to a very different place. A cool, quiet workshop on the Spanish island of Majorca, smelling of ink parchment and the salty sea breeze. This is the home of the Majorcan Cartographic School, the world's leading center for map-making. And in this workshop sits its greatest master, a Jewish cartographer named Abraham Cresques. He has received a prestigious commission, likely from the King of Aragon, to be presented as a gift to the young King Charles V of France. He is to create a map of the entire known world. Not just a functional chart for sailors, but a magnificent work of art, a total world view painted on multiple panels of fine vellum decorated with shimmering gold and silver leaf. This will be his masterpiece, the Catalan Atlas. This atlas is not just a map. It is a 14th century version of Wikipedia, a royal encyclopedia meant to give its owner a sense of command over the whole world. Cresques is a master researcher gathering information from every available source, the portal charts of sailors, the travelogues of explorers like Marco Polo, and crucially, the reports of the merchants who have traded with Africa. And the stories he is hearing about you, the fabulously wealthy king of Mali, are too persistent, too spectacular to ignore. So, on one of the vellum panels in the space representing West Africa, Cresques dips his brush in gold paint and creates an image that will define you for the European world forever. He paints you, Mansa Musa, seated on a magnificent throne. You are depicted not as some savage chieftain, but as a true European-style monarch. You wear a golden crown on your head. In one hand you hold a golden scepter, the symbol of your royal authority. And in the other hand you hold the object that will capture the imagination of Europe for centuries to come, a large, perfect, solid orb of pure gold. Next to this regal portrait, Cresques writes a caption to explain the image to the map's royal owner. The text reads, "This black lord is called Mus Meli, Lord of the Negroes of Guinea. This king is the richest and most noble lord of all this region, on account of the abundance of gold which is collected in his land." This is it. The moment your Hajj, your grand public relations campaign, achieves its ultimate goal, you have literally put Mali on the map. For the first time, a European map depicts a ruler of sub-Saharan Africa, not as a nameless barbarian, but as a powerful, identifiable, and respected king. You are shown as an equal to the crowned heads of Europe, distinguished only by the color of your skin and the unimaginable scale of your wealth. In the worldview of a European king looking at this atlas, you are now a known quantity, a major player on the world stage. But this fame is a double-edged sword. That image of you calmly holding that solid gold ball as if it were a piece of fruit cements the myth of West Africa as a real-world El Dorado, a land of infinite and easily acquired riches. It is a dangerously seductive image. In the short term, it brings you and your empire immense prestige. But in the long term, it will fuel the avarice of European adventurers and empires. For centuries to come, the dream of finding the source of Mansa Musa's gold will be a powerful motivation for Portuguese, Spanish, and other European powers to explore and eventually to conquer and colonize the West African coast. Your greatest triumph in self-promotion inadvertently creates the very myth that will one day contribute to the downfall of empires like your own. You, of course, back in your court in Mali, are likely unaware that this specific beautiful map even exists. You do not know that your likeness is being examined in the royal courts of Paris and Aragon, but you are aware of your new international stature. You hear it from the foreign merchants who now flock to Timbuktu in even greater numbers. You see it in the respect given to your ambassadors. You are no longer the ruler of a remote and little-known kingdom. You are Mansa Musa, the Golden King of Mali, a figure of global renown. You have achieved the fame and recognition you set out to create. Now all that is left is to live out your days ruling the vast and complex empire you have so thoroughly transformed. Your legend is secure. In the cartography workshops of Majorca and the merchant houses of Venice, your name is synonymous with gold. But you are not a figure on a map. You are a king, and your empire demands your attention. Being a living myth is all well and good, but it doesn't help settle a border dispute with the Mossi tribes to the south. Nor does it ensure the caravans from Taghaza arrive on time. The grand adventure is over. The long, quiet, and often tedious work of actually ruling continues. You return to a Mali that is larger and more complex than the one you left. Your fame has brought it prestige, but its vast territories stretching from the Atlantic coast deep into the Sahara require constant management. It is not a single unified nation in the modern sense. It is a sprawling federation of dozens of different peoples, each with their own language traditions, and local rulers all held together by a web of loyalty tribute and your ultimate control over the trade that gives them all life. Your days are no longer filled with desert travel and diplomatic maneuvering, but with the steady, grinding tasks of governance. You hear petitions from your subjects who travel for weeks for a chance to have the great Mansa himself arbitrate their land disputes. You review the reports from your provincial governors. You dispatch envoys to maintain relationships with nomadic tribes, and you oversee the collection of taxes that keep the whole immense enterprise running. One of the most pressing issues is the formal integration of the great city of Gao. While you were away on your Hajj, your top general, a man named Sagmandia, was not idle. He had marched his army east and conquered the rival Songhai kingdom, capturing its magnificent capital Gao, which sat on the Niger River downstream from Timbuktu. Upon your return, you embark on a royal tour to this new acquisition to formally accept its submission. Here you show that you are not just a pious pilgrim, but also a shrewd and pragmatic emperor. To ensure the long-term loyalty of this proud and powerful new city, you employ a classic imperial tactic, one used by great empires from Rome to Persia. You take the two sons of the defeated king of Gao, the princes Ali Kolon and Suleiman Nar, back with you to your capital. They are not thrown in a dungeon. On the contrary, they are treated as honored guests. They are raised and educated in your royal court in Niani, alongside your own son, Magan. They learn your language, your customs, and your way of thinking. But everyone understands the unspoken reality they are hostages. Their presence in your court ensures their father will not entertain any thoughts of rebellion. It is a masterful, if ruthless, political move. You are neutralizing a potential threat while simultaneously grooming the next generation of Gao's leadership to be loyal or at least sympathetic to the Malian crown. These are the golden years of your reign, a time of peace, stability, and cultural flourishing. The seeds you planted in Timbuktu are now bearing magnificent fruit. The university is thriving, trade is booming, and your empire is at its absolute zenith of power and influence. For about a dozen years after your return, You preside over this golden age. You watch as the architectural and intellectual projects you started come to fruition. You are no longer the adventurer, but the gardener tending to the empire you have cultivated. But even the greatest reigns must come to an end. And a life as well documented as yours has ironically a surprisingly murky conclusion. The great Arab historian Ibn Khaldun, writing a generation or two after your time, states that you reigned for 25 years, placing your death around the year 1337. This is the most commonly accepted timeline. It gives you a good long run on the throne after the Hajj, plenty of time to consolidate your gains and enjoy the fruits of your labor. In this version, you die as the reigning Mansa, passing the empire on to your son, Magan. But other sources and other interpretations suggest a different end to your story. Some historians propose that you, having completed your life's great work with the pilgrimage and the transformation of Timbuktu, chose to abdicate the throne in favor of your son. In this telling, you did not die as a king in office, but as a revered elder statesman, a man who voluntarily stepped aside his legacy, secure to spend his final days in quiet reflection and prayer. It's a romantic ending fitting for a man whose life was a blend of piety and power. The truth is, we will likely never know for sure. The precise date and circumstances of your death remain one of the last great mysteries of your life, a final, faint shimmer in your legendary story. Whether you died on the throne in 1337 or abdicated a few years earlier, the result is the same. Your great reign comes to a close. You look back from the twilight of your life on your accomplishments. You inherited an empire that was rich, but little known. You will leave behind an empire whose fame stretches across the known world. You took its raw material wealth and transformed it into a lasting cultural and intellectual legacy. You have built mosques that will stand for centuries. You have founded a center of learning that will shape the minds of generations. You have completed the sacred journey that your soul demanded. Your son, Magan, is ready. Your work is done. Your story is now complete, ready to fade from living memory and become the stuff of enduring legend. Your reign comes to a close. Whether you pass away on the throne or abdicate to a life of quiet reflection, your story as a living, breathing ruler is over. For a few brief years, it seems as though the golden age you created will last forever. Your son Magan rules over the empire, and the great machinery of trade and learning continues to turn. But an empire as vast and complex as yours is a difficult thing to hold together. It was your unique combination of wealth, piety, and political savvy that maintained its delicate balance. Your successors, unfortunately, do not possess the same gifts. The decline is not sudden. It is a slow, creeping process like a tide going out. Your son Magan proves to be a weak and ineffective ruler, spending lavishly without the grand vision that drove your own expenditures. He is eventually succeeded by your powerful brother Suleiman, who manages to claw back some stability. But the cracks are already beginning to show. Factions develop at court. Distant provinces grow restless. And most dangerously, the two young men you brought back from Gao are growing up. Here lies the final, perfect, and most painful irony of your entire story. Ali Kolon and Suleiman Nar. The two Songhai princes you raised in your court as high-status hostages have spent more than a decade observing everything. They have learned your language, your politics, your military strategies, and most importantly, they have learned the weaknesses and fault lines of your empire from the inside. During the unstable period following your death, they see their opportunity. They escape from Nyani and make the long journey home to Gao. They are received not as disgraced former hostages, but as long-lost heroes, the rightful heirs of their kingdom, now armed with an unparalleled understanding of their overlords. They establish a new dynasty, the Sani dynasty, and begin the slow, methodical process of building their own power base. They use the knowledge they gained in your court to challenge Malian authority to raid your trade routes and to slowly chip away at the edges of your empire. The very tool you used to secure your eastern flank, the education of your rival's sons, has become the seed of your empire's destruction. You gave your future conquerors a graduate-level education in how to defeat you. Over the next century, the decline accelerates. The Mali Empire beset by internal succession disputes, and the rising power of the new Songhai Empire begins to shrink. Timbuktu, your jewel of a city, is raided by Tuareg nomads, and eventually falls to the armies of the Songhai. Your empire recedes back to its original heartlands, becoming a secondary power, a shadow of its former glorious self. Its golden age is over, and yet your story does not end there. The empire may have faded, but your legend only grew, and this prompts the final question: why do we remember you? Why does the story of Mansa Musa, the 10th, Mansa of Mali, continue to captivate us 700 years later? The simple answer, of course, is the gold. It is a story of wealth so vast it transcends comprehension. It is a real-life fairy tale, a historical account that feels like a myth. In a world defined by scarcity, you represent a moment of impossible abundance, and that is an endlessly fascinating idea. Your journey is the ultimate story of a man who had everything and gave it away with such abandon that he broke the known world's economy. It's just too good a story to forget. But there is a deeper, more important reason why your legacy endures. Historians and cultural scholars argue that your story provides a vital and powerful counter-narrative. For centuries, the history of pre-colonial Africa was often ignored or dismissed by a Eurocentric world painted as a dark continent without great civilizations, powerful kings, or a meaningful place in global history. Your story obliterates that narrative. You are not a myth. You are a verifiable historical figure. Your journey is documented in the chronicles of the Arab world. Your impact is recorded in the economic history of Egypt. Your face is painted in gold leaf on one of the most important maps of the European Middle Ages. You were a ruler of immense power, profound faith, and global influence. Your empire was a sophisticated, complex, and wealthy state that was a major player on the world stage. Your story is a powerful reminder that Africa had its own glorious golden ages, its own epic histories, and its own legendary kings long before the arrival of European ships on its coasts. We remember you not just because you were rich, but because your story is a crucial piece of our collective human history that deserves to be told. And so your legend rests as it began with that single, powerful image. The king of Mali, seated on his throne holding a golden orb, a beacon of a time when a West African empire, through the will of its visionary ruler, placed itself at the very center of the world. Word count 1845. And so the story of the great Mansa, the Golden King of Mali, comes to its quiet conclusion. The echoes of his vast caravan laden with scholars and with gold now fade into the soft sands of the past. The vibrant marketplaces of Cairo and the hallowed halls of Timbuktu recede, leaving behind only a gentle sense of peace, a feeling of a journey completed. Let the details of the story begin to soften and blur like a landscape seen through a gentle haze. There is no need to hold on to the names or the dates any longer. All that matters now is the steady rhythmic cadence of the tale, a gentle sound to accompany your own slowing breath. The weight of history, with all its triumphs and its follies, can now be set aside. The only task that remains is to rest. Allow your mind to drift away from the golden plains of Africa and into the quiet, peaceful plains of your own slumber. Let the narrative dissolve completely, its purpose fulfilled, leaving behind only a deep and profound stillness. There are no more roads to travel tonight, no more destinations to reach. There is only the soft comfort of your bed and the gentle, welcoming darkness of a deep and restorative sleep. Let go of the story now and let yourself drift.